My business partner smiled as he slid the termination letter across the mahogany desk. Effective immediately, Dr. Sarah Chen. Security will escort you out in 15 minutes. Oh, and congratulations on the divorce papers. They'll be served tomorrow. Amanda will be taking over your position as CTO. I looked at the man I'd spent 6 years building data flow analytics with, the man who'd promised we'd change the world together, and quietly activated the dead man's switch I'd coded 3 months ago. They had exactly 12 hours before their empire crumbled. But let me start from the beginning. 4 years ago, Michael Torres and I sat in a cramped WeWork space in Austin, Texas, surviving on energy drinks and the dream of revolutionizing data analytics. The air conditioning barely worked, and the walls were so thin we could hear every conversation from neighboring startups. But none of that mattered when we were building something extraordinary. What if we could predict market trends before they happen? Michael had said, his eyes bright with possibility as he paced behind my desk. Not just analyze historical data, but actually see the future patterns emerging in real time. I remember looking up from my dual monitors, my neck stiff from 14 hours of coding. Give me 6 months, I told him. I'll build something that makes every other analytics platform look like a calculator. He'd grab my hands then, right there among the scattered energy drink cans and takeout containers. This is why we're perfect partners, Sarah. You make impossible things possible. Those early days were intoxicating. We'd work 20-hour stretches, living on Vietnamese pho from the place downstairs in pure ambition. Michael handled the business side, finding investors, charming potential clients, managing our pathetic finances. I lived in the code, building our platform algorithm by algorithm, function by function. Our wedding happened right after we signed our first major client. I wore a simple blue dress I'd bought online for $150, and we got married at Austin City Hall on a Wednesday afternoon because weekends were for working. Michael held my hands and made promises that went beyond traditional vows. We're partners in everything, he'd whispered just for me to hear. Equal in business, equal in life. Your vision is our vision. I believed every word. Dataflow analytics grew faster than either of us had imagined. Within 18 months, we'd moved from WeWork to real office space in Austin's tech corridor. Nothing fancy, just a converted warehouse with exposed brick and concrete floors that we painted bright colors to make it feel alive. We hired our first employees, signed our first $1 million contract, and suddenly our little company was competing with industry giants. At least I thought it was our company. The changes started subtly. During team meetings, Michael began explaining my technical updates to our staff in simpler terms. When I'd present my latest algorithmic breakthrough, he'd interrupt with, "What Sarah means is," then proceed to translate my own work back to me as if I'd been speaking another language. When I confronted him about it, he'd laugh it off. "Honey, you know how you get lost in the technical weeds sometimes. I'm just helping the team understand the big picture." Then came the client presentations. I'd spend weeks preparing demonstrations of our newest features, only to watch Michael present them while I sat silently beside him like an expensive prop. "Sarah's our technical genius," he'd tell clients with a patronizing smile. "She makes the magic happen behind the scenes." Behind the scenes. That's where he wanted me. The day Amanda Rodriguez walked into our office for her interview, I actually felt hopeful. Finally, another woman in our testosterone-heavy environment of developers and sales guys. She was sharp, professional, with an MBA from UT Austin and 7 years of experience at Dell. Her references were flawless. "She's perfect," I told Michael after the interview. "She understands operations in a way we desperately need." He hired her the next day. Amanda integrated into our company culture seamlessly. She reorganized our chaotic project management system, streamlined our client onboarding process, and somehow made our disaster of a supply room actually functional. She brought homemade breakfast tacos to Monday meetings and remembered everyone's work anniversaries. I thought I'd found an ally. The late nights started about 6 weeks after she joined. First, it was preparing for a major investor pitch. Then it was restructuring our sales processes. Then it was strategic planning for international expansion. Always something urgent, always something that couldn't wait until morning. "You head home," Michael would tell me around 8 p.m. "Amanda and I need to finish this market analysis. Don't wait up." I drive home alone to our house in South Austin, the one we'd bought when the company's success finally felt real. I'd heat up leftover barbacoa and fall asleep on our couch waiting for him, waking up when he crawled into bed at 2 or 3 a.m., smelling like her jasmine perfume. "You're imagining things," he said when I finally worked up the courage to ask about it. "Amanda wears the same perfume half the women in Austin wear. You're being paranoid." Was I? I started questioning my own instincts, my own sanity. Maybe I was just exhausted from the long hours. Maybe the pressure of growing the company was making me see problems that didn't exist. After all, Michael loved me. We built this company together. We were partners. The board meeting in October should have been my moment of triumph. I just completed a revolutionary upgrade to our predictive algorithms that increased accuracy by 400%. Our clients were ecstatic, calling it a breakthrough that would change their entire approach to market analysis. But when Michael presented to our investors, my breakthrough became a collaborative effort led by our exceptional technical team. "Don't you mean led by Dr. Chen?" asked Patricia Williams, our lead investor, glancing at me with confusion. Michael laughed smoothly. "Of course, Sarah's our CTO, but she'll be the first to tell you this was a team effort. We believe in collaborative innovation. I sat there frozen, unable to contradict him in front of the board. Amanda took notes beside him, her expression neutral, professional, just doing her job. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Michael, listening to his steady breathing, and realized something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't our company anymore. Somewhere along the way, it had become his company, and I was just another employee who happened to share his bed. The isolation was the cruelest part. Jenny, our lead data scientist who'd been with us since year one, stopped joining me for our usual Friday lunches. Just really swamped, she'd say, avoiding eye contact. Kevin, our machine learning architect, used to bounce ideas off me constantly. Now he sent formal emails with Amanda copied, requesting approval for decisions he'd previously made independently. Even the administrative staff grew distant. Conversations would stop when I walked into the break room. The easy camaraderie we'd built over 3 years evaporated like morning mist. One afternoon in November, I overheard a conversation between 2 junior developers who didn't realize I was in the supply closet looking for printer toner. Is it true she had some kind of breakdown during the quarterly review? One asked. That's what I heard. Michael's been really patient with her, but it's affecting team morale. Amanda said we need to be supportive, but maintain professional boundaries. Yeah, she's been great about helping us navigate the situation. The situation. That's what I'd become. Not the co-founder who'd built the algorithms they worked with every day, but a problem to be managed. I sat in that supply closet for 15 minutes, surrounded by boxes of paper and toner cartridges, finally understanding how completely I'd been outmaneuvered. That December afternoon started like any other. I picked up Michael's favorite lunch from Franklin Barbecue, brisket sandwich, extra sauce, just how he liked it. The line had been worth it. The smell filled my car as I drove back to the office. His door was slightly open when I arrived. I could hear voices from the conference room down the hall, including Michael's distinctive laugh. Good. His 3 p.m. meeting had moved locations. I pushed his door open with my hip, ready to surprise him with lunch. Amanda's silver MacBook sat open on his desk, still logged in, the screen bright with her Gmail account. I should have just closed it and left the food. Should have walked away. But there was something about seeing her personal computer in his private office that made me pause. The preview of the top email made my stomach tighten. Can't wait for this weekend at the lake house. Perfect place to finalize our plans. From Michael's personal email address. I set the barbecue down slowly, my eyes fixed on that screen. My finger hovered over the trackpad for just a second before I scrolled down. The next email's preview read, "Once Sarah is out, we can restructure the entire technical division." The smell of brisket suddenly made me nauseous. I sank into Michael's chair and started reading. Really reading. Email after email, a correspondence stretching back 5 months. My husband and Amanda weren't just having an affair. They were planning a complete takeover of the company. My company, built on algorithms I'd coded with my own hands. The board trusts my judgment completely, Michael had written 6 weeks ago. When I explain that Sarah's been unstable and her work quality is declining, they'll support the termination. 49% ownership means nothing if she's voted out for cause. Amanda's response was worse. The documentation I've been creating will support that narrative. Every time she questions your decisions, I've noted it as resistance to leadership. Every time she works late, it's obsessive behavior. We have enough. I grabbed my phone and started taking photos. Quick, silent clicks capturing every damning word. My hands remained steady, even as my chest felt like it might explode. 37 photos. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. I closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it and was unpacking the barbecue when Michael walked in with 2 other executives. "Babe!" His face lit up with what I now recognized as practiced affection. "What a great surprise." "Thought you might be hungry," I managed, my voice somehow normal. "Hi, Tom. Hi, David." They exchanged pleasantries while I played the loving wife, mentioning I had to get back to debugging the new recommendation engine. Michael kissed my cheek, a performance for his colleagues, and I left, walking steadily until I reached the parking garage where I threw up beside my Tesla. That night, I lay next to Michael while he scrolled through his phone, occasionally chuckling at something. Was he texting her? Planning their weekend at some lake house? I studied his profile in the blue light of his screen. This stranger wearing my husband's face. "Everything okay?" he asked without looking at me. "You were quiet at dinner." "Just tired. The new algorithm is complex. Maybe you should take a break. You've been pushing yourself pretty hard lately." There it was, more groundwork for my supposed instability. I made a non-committal sound and turned away, my mind racing. They were planning to force me out, but when? How much time did I have? The next morning, after Michael left for his CrossFit session, I opened my laptop and began my real work. Not company algorithms. Something far more important. I started documenting everything. Every contribution I'd made to data flow, every line of code I'd written, every innovation that had come from my mind. I created encrypted folders, backed up to multiple cloud services under accounts Michael didn't know existed. Then I started building my insurance policy. I bought a tiny digital recorder from a spy shop downtown, paying cash while wearing sunglasses like some character in a thriller novel. But it worked. I recorded meetings where Michael presented my ideas as collaborative efforts. I recorded him telling potential clients that I was technical support while he was the visionary. The hardest part was continuing to sleep next to him, continuing to kiss him goodbye in the mornings, continuing to pretend I didn't know he was destroying everything we'd built together while planning a future with another woman. Some nights I'd lie awake until 4 a.m., coding on my laptop while he snored beside me. But this wasn't vengeful code. Not yet. This was preparation. I embedded tracking protocols into every major system I built, invisible markers that would prove the code was mine. I created backdoors into the platform, not to harm it, but to ensure I could demonstrate my authorship if needed. Each line was carefully crafted to be completely undetectable during normal operations. Dr. Patricia Reeves, a therapist in Cedar Park, became my lifeline. I paid cash, gave a fake last name, and poured out my story to a stranger who handed me tissues and told me I wasn't losing my mind. Gaslighting, she said during our 4th session. What you're describing is textbook emotional manipulation. But what if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being paranoid? She looked at me over her glasses. You have photographic evidence of their conspiracy. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. December turned into January. The company holiday party was torture. Watching Michael and Amanda carefully maintain professional distance while their eyes found each other across the room. I wore my best dress and smiled until my face hurt, playing the devoted wife and dedicated co-founder. Sarah is the heart of our technical innovation, Michael told everyone during his toast. Past tense. I noticed. Not is creating or is building, just heart. Something that could be replaced. 3 weeks before everything ended, I heard them on a conference call they didn't know I joined. I dialed in early for a board meeting, and they were using the line thinking they were alone. After Valentine's Day, Michael was saying, clean break. The divorce papers and termination on the same day. Same day? Amanda asked. Isn't that cruel? Efficient. By March, you'll officially be CTO and we can stop sneaking around. The lake house can become our permanent weekend retreat. I muted my line and listened to them plan my professional and personal execution, taking notes in my encrypted journal. February 14th. I had less than a month. That night I worked until dawn, not on company code, but on my final insurance policy. Every system I built for data flow had a heartbeat, a rhythm I knew better than my own pulse. I didn't create destruction. I created dependency. Elegant code that would only function properly with my continued oversight. The kind of systems that would work perfectly until they didn't, and then would require their original architect to fix them. The algorithms I'd spent 4 years perfecting were about to become my greatest weapon. The countdown had begun. But first, let me tell you about the moments that led to that final confrontation. The board restructuring proposal came in early February, presented as a necessary evolution for our growing company. Michael had prepared a PowerPoint presentation complete with organizational charts showing him at the top as CEO, with me underneath as CTO reporting directly to him. It's just formalizing what we already have, he explained to our senior staff. I handle business strategy. Sarah handles technology implementation. This makes reporting structures clearer for investors and clients. But we're co-founders, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Equal partners. Of course we are, he replied smoothly. This doesn't change that. It's just about operational efficiency. Tom from sales nodded along. David from marketing seemed to think it made sense. Even my own development team stayed quiet. I realized then that the groundwork had been laid long before this meeting. Everyone had already been convinced this was reasonable, necessary, maybe even overdue. Amanda took notes naturally. I think what Michael's proposing makes a lot of sense, she offered, as if her opinion had been requested. Clear hierarchies reduce confusion and improve decision-making speed. Since when do we need hierarchy between founders? I asked. Michael's smile was patronizing. Since we stopped being a 2-person startup and became a $15 million company. The vote was scheduled for the next board meeting. I spent the intervening weeks trying to shore up support, but every conversation felt like pushing against a wall that had already been built. Meanwhile, Amanda's influence was extending everywhere. She started joining client calls that had always been mine, introduced as our operations strategist who's helping optimize technical implementations. She attended product demos I conducted, taking notes and asking questions that subtly undermined my explanations. When Sarah says revolutionary, she'd clarify to clients, her tone helpful and professional, what she means is significantly improved. We want to manage expectations appropriately. She began copying herself on emails between me and my development team, just to stay in the loop. She scheduled one-on-ones with my direct reports to better understand their challenges. She even started bringing breakfast tacos to our morning stand-ups, positioning herself as the caring, attentive leader while I was painted as the obsessive technician. The isolation was surgical in its precision. Jenny stopped joining me for our Friday lunches. Just really swamped. Kevin sent formal emails requesting approval for decisions he'd previously made independently. Even the administrative staff grew distant. One afternoon in January, I overheard a conversation between 2 junior developers in the break room. Is it true she's been having panic attacks? One whispered. That's what Amanda mentioned during our team check-in. She said we should be supportive but not enable any unhealthy work patterns. Michael's been really patient with her. Must be hard being married to someone going through a breakdown. A breakdown. That's what I'd become. Not the woman who built the algorithms that made their jobs possible, but a liability to be managed with patience and professional concern. The financial discrepancies were harder to track, but I found them. Small amounts at first, consulting fees to companies that barely existed. Global Analytics Consulting, $23,000. Integrated Strategy Solutions, $18,500. When I researched these companies, I found websites that looked professional but contained no real information about their services. I confronted Michael with printouts during what I thought would be a routine financial review. Why are you digging through financial records? He didn't even look up from his laptop. That's not your area anymore. I'm a 49% owner of this company. Every area is my area. He sighed, the sound of an adult dealing with a difficult child. These are standard business expenses. Consultants Amanda brought in to help with operational improvements. I want to meet these consultants. Do you want to micromanage everything, or do you want to focus on what you do best? The conversation spiraled into an argument that ended with him walking out. That evening, Amanda stayed late to mediate, sitting in our conference room with her perfect posture and concerned expression. He's just stressed, she told me. You both are. Maybe if you focused on your technical responsibilities and let him handle the business operations, things would be smoother. Looking back, I can see how carefully orchestrated it all was. Every conversation, every meeting, every small humiliation was designed to make my eventual removal seem inevitable, even merciful. The final board meeting I attended was in early February. I wasn't presenting. Michael had made that clear. But as a major shareholder, I couldn't be excluded entirely. I sat at the end of the conference table, watching him present my work as collaborative team efforts while Amanda provided supporting documentation for every claim. Patricia Williams and the other investors barely looked at me. When I tried to add context to a technical question, Michael smoothly interrupted. Sarah's absolutely right, and that's exactly what our documentation shows. He made my expertise sound like confirmation of his own understanding. I left that meeting knowing my professional assassination was complete. In 6 months, I'd gone from co-founder and technical visionary to unstable liability. That night, as Michael slept beside me, I opened my laptop one final time. The code I'd been writing wasn't just insurance anymore. It was justice waiting to be served. The algorithm was elegant in its simplicity. A digital dead man switch that would activate if I didn't check in every 24 hours. Not destruction. That would be too obvious. Instead, dependency. The systems would begin requiring increasing amounts of manual oversight, throwing errors that only I would know how to fix, creating cascading failures that would look like natural system degradation, but would actually be carefully orchestrated chaos. 3 days before everything ended, at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, I watched our platform do something extraordinary. It detected a pattern in cryptocurrency market data that our largest client, Austin Financial Group, had been trying to identify for months, a hidden correlation between social media sentiment and trading volumes that could predict market movements with 94% accuracy. I called their head of analytics directly from my home office. Richard, you need to look at your dashboard right now. The platform just identified the pattern you've been chasing. Sarah, it's 3 a.m. What are you talking about? Check the crypto correlation analysis. The platform found the social sentiment linkage you've been looking for. Silence, then rapid typing. Jesus Christ, how is this possible? This is revolutionary. This could be worth hundreds of millions. I walked him through the discovery, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I helped his team understand the implications. By morning, they had a new trading strategy that would transform their entire approach to cryptocurrency markets. The call came at 9 a.m. Richard Lawson, Austin Financial CEO, was practically shouting with excitement. Sarah, do you understand what you've just done? This discovery could revolutionize algorithmic trading. We need to discuss licensing this technology exclusively. The platform did what it was designed to do, I said, exhausted but exhilarated. This is why data flow exists. We need to set up a call with Michael and the team. This deserves immediate attention. My stomach sank. Of course. Michael would coordinate everything. The client call was scheduled for that afternoon. I prepared a detailed presentation showing exactly how our algorithms had detected the hidden patterns, the machine learning models that made it possible, and the implications for financial forecasting globally. This was Nobel Prize level innovation, and it had come from my mind, my code, my sleepless nights. Michael reviewed my presentation an hour before the call. This is pretty technical, he said, frowning at my slides. Let me simplify it for the client. I watched him delete slide after slide of my work, replacing them with vague buzzwords and corporate speak. My groundbreaking algorithm became proprietary pattern recognition technology. The machine learning breakthrough became advanced analytics capabilities. 4 years of innovation reduced to marketing fluff. When the call began, Michael positioned himself front and center, while I sat slightly off to the side, barely visible in the frame. Richard, we're thrilled that Dataflow's platform delivered this breakthrough for Austin Financial, Michael began, his voice smooth and confident. This is exactly the kind of result we've been working toward as a team. Incredible work, Richard responded. Sarah, that call at 3 a.m., you sounded like you were watching the future unfold. Michael jumped in before I could respond. That's the beauty of our system. It allows our entire team to monitor and respond to market patterns proactively. Sarah was simply the one monitoring the overnight analysis. I hadn't slept in 30 hours perfecting those algorithms. There was no monitoring schedule. This was my life's work. Actually, I started, but Michael smoothly interrupted. What Sarah's too modest to say is that this represents a collaborative effort. While she handles the technical implementation, our entire team contributes to the platform's success. Amanda, our head of operations, has been instrumental in creating the processes that made this rapid response possible. Amanda appeared on screen from her office, nodding graciously. Thank you, Michael. It's really about having the right systems in place to support our technical team's brilliant work. Support. She didn't even understand how the algorithms functioned. The call continued for another 30 minutes, with Michael masterfully redirecting every bit of credit away from me while appearing to praise my contribution. By the end, Richard Lawson probably thought I was just a coding technician following orders from visionary leadership. After the call ended, I sat in our empty conference room, staring at the blank screen. My greatest professional achievement had just been stolen in real time, and I'd been powerless to stop it. That evening, I made my final preparations. Every piece of documentation that proved my authorship of Dataflow's core technology went into multiple encrypted cloud storage accounts, registered under my maiden name. Patent applications I'd filed independently before the company's formation. Original code repositories with timestamp verification. Email chains from the early days when Michael freely admitted he couldn't understand my technical explanations. I also discovered something else while digging through our financial records. Global Analytics Consulting traced back to an address that happened to be Amanda's brother's apartment complex in Dallas. Integrated Strategy Solutions was registered to a shell company in Nevada, with Amanda listed as an authorized agent. They weren't just planning to steal my company. They'd already been embezzling from it. Thursday morning, I met with Sandra Martinez, a divorce attorney recommended by my therapist. Her office was in Round Rock, far enough from Austin's tech corridor that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. Sandra was in her 50s, with sharp eyes that had seen every type of marital betrayal imaginable. Texas is a community property state, she explained after reviewing my documentation. Normally, that would mean a 50-50 split of assets acquired during marriage. But your husband has been very clever. The company structure shows you as a technical consultant who was granted equity, not a co-founder. That's impossible. We founded it together. She showed me the paperwork. My signature was there, but the documents had been altered, digitally modified to change my status from co-founder to early employee with equity compensation. The timestamps showed they'd been updated just 6 weeks ago. He's been planning this for months, Sandra said gently. The good news is, if we can prove fraud, everything changes. But that's a long, expensive fight. How expensive? More than you'll have access to once he freezes the joint accounts, which he will do the moment you're served. I wrote her a check from my personal account, one Michael didn't know about, where I'd been slowly accumulating money from small consulting projects. Build the case, I told her. I'll handle the rest. That night was our last as husband and wife, though only I knew it. Michael suggested staying in instead of going out to dinner. I want to cook for you, he said, and for a moment he looked like the man I'd fallen in love with. The one who'd stayed up all night with me debugging code, who'd celebrated every small victory with genuine joy. He made chicken and waffles, my favorite comfort food, and opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving for a special occasion. We sat at our dining room table, the one we bought at a flea market our first year together, and refinished in our tiny apartment. Remember when we could barely afford ramen? He said, raising his glass. Look how far we've come. We've built something incredible, I agreed, clinking my glass against his. He reached across the table and took my hand. I know things have been tense lately. The company's growth, the pressure, it's been hard on both of us. But I want you to know, Sarah, you're the most brilliant person I've ever met. Past tense again. After this next quarter, let's take a vacation, he continued. Somewhere tropical, just us. That sounds perfect. I lied, watching him lie to me. We did the dishes together like we used to. He washed, I dried. Our movements were synchronized from years of practice. When we finished, he pulled me close and kissed me, and for just a moment, I let myself feel the loss of what we'd had. I love you, he whispered. I know, I said, because I couldn't say it back. Not anymore. That night, as Michael slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake running through my mental checklist. The code was in place. The documentation was secured. The lawyer was retained. Everything was ready. At 4 a.m., I slipped out of bed and walked through our house one last time. The pictures on the walls, our wedding photo, the first day in our office, the celebration when we signed our first major client. All those moments when I believed we were building something together. I made coffee and sat in my home office, watching the sunrise through the window. In 5 hours, Michael would call me into his office. In 5 hours, my life as I knew it would end. But he didn't know about the dead man switch. He didn't know about the code waiting to activate. He didn't know that sometimes the person you underestimate most is the one who holds all the power. I opened my laptop and set the final parameters. If I didn't check in within 24 hours, the systems would begin their elegant decline. Then I closed the laptop, finished my coffee, and went to get ready for my last day as Michael's wife and business partner. The morning of February 14th, how's that for poetic timing? I chose my navy blue power suit, the one I'd worn to our first major investor presentation. My hands were steady as I applied lipstick, put on the watch Michael had given me for our 3rd anniversary, and slipped my phone into my jacket pocket with the recording app already running. Every detail mattered now. The call came at exactly 9 a.m., not 8:59, not 9:01. Michael had always been precise about his cruelties. Sarah, his assistant Carol sounded uncomfortable. Michael needs to see you in his office right away. He says it's urgent. I'll be right there. I picked up my laptop bag, the same one from our startup days with the Dataflow sticker peeling off the corner, and walked through the office with my head high. Developers looked up from their screens as I passed. Did they know? Had word already spread through the carefully constructed gossip network? The elevator ride to the executive floor felt both endless and too quick. Each floor that passed was another second closer to the performance Michael and Amanda had orchestrated. When the doors opened, Carol was studiously avoiding eye contact, suddenly fascinated by her computer screen. Go right in, she mumbled. They're waiting. They. Plural. I turned the handle of the door we'd chosen together, the one with the Austin City skyline etched in the glass. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a scene staged with theatrical precision. Michael sat behind his desk, our desk, the one we'd bought at an estate sale, joking that someday we'd be successful enough to deserve it. Amanda stood to his right, her hand resting on the back of his chair with casual ownership. She wore a red dress. Power color. Message received. But there was a third person, Gary Hughes from HR, lurking in the corner with a manila folder and the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Sarah, please sit down. Michael's voice carried that CEO tone he'd been practicing, authoritative but detached. I remained standing. I'm comfortable, thanks. Something flickered in his eyes, annoyance that I wasn't following his script. Very well. He straightened a stack of papers on his desk, a nervous tell I recognized from years of watching him prepare for difficult conversations. I'm afraid we need to discuss your position here at Dataflow. My position as co-founder and CTO? Amanda shifted slightly. Gary clutched his folder tighter. Your position as an employee, Michael corrected, his tone sharp. And I'm afraid that position is being terminated, effective immediately. The words hung in the air between us. I counted 3 heartbeats before responding. On what grounds? Performance issues, failure to adapt to organizational changes, and creating a disruptive work environment. He picked up a document, pretending to read from it. There have been multiple complaints about your erratic behavior and inability to work within the new management structure. Complaints from whom? That's confidential, Amanda interjected, her first words since I'd entered. But I can assure you they've been thoroughly documented. I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman I'd welcomed, mentored, invited to our home for dinner parties. How long? I asked her directly. I'm sorry? How long have you been sleeping with my husband? Gary made a strangled sound. Michael's face flushed red. That's exactly the kind of baseless accusation that exemplifies your recent behavior, Michael said coldly. You're paranoid, Sarah. You see conspiracies where there are none. So Amanda's hand on your shoulder is professional? The trips to the lake house, the late-night strategy sessions? You're embarrassing yourself, he said, but I caught the quick glance he shot at Gary. No witnesses to their plans. Please continue with your little performance, I said calmly. His jaw clenched. This wasn't going according to plan. I was supposed to be emotional, hysterical, giving them more ammunition for their narrative. Instead, I stood perfectly still, my phone recording everything from my jacket pocket. The decision has been made, he said, sliding a packet across the desk. Your termination is effective immediately. You'll receive 4-week severance, continuation of health insurance for 60 days, and, he paused, that cruel smile finally breaking through. You can keep your old laptop, the MacBook from the early days. Call it sentimental value. The laptop. My 2018 MacBook Pro that contained every original line of code, every algorithm, every innovation that built this company. He thought he was being magnanimous, throwing scraps to the woman he destroyed. He had no idea he was handing me the keys to his kingdom. That's generous, I said flatly. We think so, Amanda chimed in, considering the circumstances. The circumstances being that you're stealing my company? Nobody's stealing anything, Michael said, his voice taking on an edge of warning. You're a minority shareholder who's being removed from operational duties due to documented performance issues. Your equity remains intact, though of course its value will depend on the company's continued success under new leadership. New leadership being Amanda. The board will make that determination. The board he'd been poisoning against me for months. The board that would rubber stamp whatever he recommended. Is that everything? I asked. Michael seemed surprised by my calm. He'd prepared for tears, anger, pleading, not this cold acceptance. Not quite. His smile widened, and I saw the man behind the mask, the one who'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. There's one more matter, personal in nature. He pulled out another envelope, this one with the law firm's logo in the corner. I've filed for divorce. The papers will be served tomorrow morning. I thought it would be cleaner to handle both matters simultaneously, professional and personal separation. The room tilted slightly, but I held steady. Even expecting it, hearing the words felt like being hollowed out with surgical precision. How efficient of you. I'm moving out tonight, he continued as if discussing a dinner reservation. You can keep the house for now. We'll sort out the division of assets through our attorneys. Our attorneys. Already separate, already divided. Anything else? My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. Security will escort you to your desk to collect your personal belongings. Gary finally spoke, his voice apologetic. Standard procedure, of course. I picked up the termination packet without looking at it, then reached for the laptop bag Michael had gestured toward. My old computer, sitting on the side table, obviously placed there for this moment. "Sarah," Michael said as I turned to leave. I stopped, but didn't turn around. "For what it's worth, you're brilliant. You always have been. But brilliance without business sense, without the ability to adapt to growth, it only gets you so far." I did turn then, meeting his eyes one last time. "You're right, Michael. I never learned to play political games. I was too busy building the company you're about to destroy." His smirk faltered slightly. Amanda's hand moved to his shoulder again, a gesture of support or possession. "Security is waiting outside," Gary said quietly. 2 guards stood in the hallway, trying to look professional rather than uncomfortable. I recognized them, Tony and Marcus, guys I chatted with every morning for 3 years. "Morning, gentlemen," I said pleasantly. "Shall we?" The walk through the office was surreal. Every face that turned toward me was a judgment. Some looked away quickly, complicit in their knowledge. Others seemed confused, watching their CTO being marched out like a corporate criminal. A few, my original team members, looked stricken. Jenny half stood from her desk as I passed. I shook my head slightly, and she sank back down. At my office, former office, I was given 10 minutes to pack. I made a show of slowly placing personal items in a box. The coffee mug from our first product launch, a photo of our original 4-person team, the stress ball shaped like a bug that developers had given me as a joke. I left everything important. The awards, the certificates, the framed patent applications. Let them gather dust as monuments to what Michael had destroyed. "That's everything," I told Tony, who looked like he wanted to apologize but couldn't find the words. The elevator ride down felt like descending from a life I'd never get back. Through the lobby, past the reception desk where Emma watched with wide eyes, out through the glass doors I'd helped select because they represented transparency and openness. The February air hit my face, sharp and clean. Behind me, the building rose into the Austin sky, containing everything I'd built and lost in the span of 4 years. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Check your email." Amanda. I deleted it without reading whatever gloating message she'd sent. Another buzz. This time, my calendar notification, "System maintenance, 24 hours. I looked back at the building one more time, then walked to my car, placing the laptop bag carefully in the passenger seat. 24 hours until the dead man switch activated. 24 hours until they learned what happens when you betray someone who built the very foundation you're standing on. My car sat in the parking garage like a sanctuary, but I couldn't bring myself to get in yet. The laptop bag weighed heavy in my hands as I stood beside the driver's door, watching the digital clock on my phone tick forward. I placed the bag carefully in the passenger seat and pulled out my phone, opening an encrypted messaging app I'd installed months ago. The interface showed a single status indicator, dead man switch, 234733. The concrete pillar next to my car had a small crack running through it. I'd noticed it the day we'd moved into this building, joked with Michael that it was a metaphor for how we'd break through industry barriers. Now it looked like a fault line ready to split wide open. I finally got into my car, but didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, I sat there, windows down, listening to the subtle sounds of the building above me. Normal office sounds. Normal office life continuing as if nothing had changed, as if the company's entire digital infrastructure wasn't about to shift beneath their feet like tectonic plates. I drove up the garage ramp slowly, watching the building through my mirrors. By the time I reached street level, I was already planning my next moves. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming everything that had been stolen from me. The rain started as I pulled into traffic. That particular Austin drizzle that couldn't decide if it wanted to be a sprinkle or a downpour. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot on South Lamar, hazard lights blinking, and got out. The rain felt good on my face, washing away the sterile office air, the smell of Michael's cologne, the suffocating weight of manufactured corporate dignity. I stood on the sidewalk, tilting my face up to the gray sky, and for the first time in months, I felt free. No more pretending to be asleep when Michael crept into bed at 2 a.m. No more forcing smiles in meetings while my work was stolen. No more swallowing my voice to maintain a peace that was already shattered. My phone buzzed with the first call. Richard Lawson from Austin Financial. "Sarah, thank God you answered. We just heard about your departure from Dataflow. Please tell me this isn't true." "It's true, Richard. I was terminated this morning." Silence. Then, "That's impossible. The cryptocurrency breakthrough was just 2 days ago. Ask Michael. He felt my services were no longer required. But the algorithms, the pattern recognition, that was all you, wasn't it? I don't work there anymore, Richard." "Sarah, please. Whatever they're paying you, we'll double it. We need you." "I appreciate that, but I'm not in a position to help anyone right now." I ended the call. Immediately, another came through. Patricia Williams, our lead investor. "Dr. Chen, I just heard the news. This is catastrophic. You're the technical backbone of the entire company." I was, past tense. "But Michael assured the board just last week that you were committed to the company long term. Michael says a lot of things." The calls kept coming. Clients, investors, former colleagues, journalists who'd somehow gotten my number. I sent them all to voicemail, watching the messages pile up like digital snow. Then, at 2:47 p.m., Michael's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 6 times before answering. "Sarah, I need you to come back immediately. No greeting, no pretense." His CEO voice had been replaced by something raw and desperate. I was escorted out by security. Remember? Stop playing games. Something's wrong with the system. The algorithms are throwing errors we've never seen before. That's unfortunate. The cryptocurrency model you built, it's failing. Austin Financial is threatening to pull their contract. My model isn't the problem, Michael. Then what is? These errors appeared out of nowhere. The timing is too coincidental. Maybe you should have kept the person who understood the system. Sarah, please. His voice broke on the word. I know this morning was difficult, but this is bigger than personal issues. The company is at risk. Your company, I corrected. You made that very clear. I heard muffled voices in the background. Then Amanda's voice came on the line. Sarah, this is beneath you. Whatever grudge you're holding, innocent people are being hurt. Our employees, their families. The employees who watched me get marched out like a criminal? That was protocol. That was theater. I cut her off. You wanted everyone to see me humiliated. Well, now they can see you panic. Michael grabbed the phone back. The system is cascading, error after error. Do you understand what this means? It means you should have invested more in system redundancy instead of reorganizing to push out your co-founder. I'm begging you. Those 3 words hung in the air. Michael had never begged for anything in his life. He charmed, persuaded, manipulated, demanded, but never begged. I can't help you, Michael. I don't have access anymore. You made sure of that. I'll give you full admin access right now. Root privileges, whatever you need. And contaminate the crime scene? I'm sure the authorities would find that interesting. Crime scene? What are you talking about? A major system failure at a company handling sensitive financial data, and you haven't notified federal authorities. That's going to look interesting in the investigation. The sound he made wasn't quite a sob, but close. My phone beeped with another call. Local tech reporter. I have to go, Michael. Good luck with everything. Sarah, wait. I ended the call and switched to the reporter. Dr. Chen, I'm calling about the situation at Dataflow Analytics. We understand you were the CTO until this morning. Can you comment on the timing of your departure and the current system failures? No comment. But surely the coincidence. I said no comment. I turned my phone to silent and drove home through streets that felt different somehow. Lighter. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and gleaming. My house, soon to be just my house once the divorce went through, sat quiet and welcoming on a tree-lined street in South Austin. Inside, I made myself tea and opened my personal laptop, the one Michael never knew about. The news was already spreading through tech circles. Someone had leaked internal communications showing chaos at Dataflow. Screenshots of error messages, photos of developers frantically debugging, even a video of Michael shouting at someone in the parking lot. My phone, still on silent, showed 73 missed calls. The number kept climbing. I opened my encrypted partition and watched the real-time feeds. The system errors were escalating exactly as programmed. Each failure triggered additional security checks, which created bottlenecks, which caused timeouts, which triggered more failures. An elegant spiral of dysfunction that looked completely natural to anyone who didn't understand the underlying architecture. At 6 p.m., the first news report aired on local tech blogs. Dataflow Analytics suffers major system outage. By 7 p.m., it had spread to national tech publications. Austin Startup's platform crashes hours after CTO departure. The client exodus was swift and brutal. Austin Financial's termination triggered a domino effect. If Dataflow couldn't keep its own systems running, how could it analyze their data? By 8 p.m., 60% of major contracts had been suspended pending investigation. The investor situation was even worse. Patricia Williams didn't just express concern, she issued a public statement questioning Dataflow's technical leadership and operational stability. Other investors followed suit. At 9 p.m., my encrypted system sent me an update. Switch activation in 42317, all systems nominal. I pulled up Dataflow's stock tracker. They'd gone public just 8 months ago, another of Michael's grand plans. The stock had opened at $32. It was now at $18 and falling in after-hours trading. My phone lit up with a text from Jenny. He's crying in the server room. Actually crying. Amanda locked herself in her office. Everyone's updating their resumes. Another from a number I didn't recognize. This is Kevin from the ML team. I'm sorry about this morning. We all knew it was wrong. Michael's getting what he deserves. At 11 p.m., the international coverage began. TechCrunch ran a scathing piece. How Dataflow's founder destroyed his own company. The article detailed Michael's restructuring efforts and my sudden departure, with anonymous quotes from employees describing the toxic environment. I closed my laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring the real chaos. I woke at 6 a.m. to my phone buzzing incessantly. 247 missed calls now, plus dozens of text messages and emails. I scrolled through them while drinking my morning coffee. Investors, clients, media outlets, headhunters, and scattered throughout them like desperate heartbeats, Michael. Each unanswered call was a small victory, a tiny reversal of every time he dismissed me, talked over me, stolen credit for my work. The morning news led with Dataflow's collapse. They'd found footage of Michael from a tech conference just 3 weeks ago where he'd given a presentation on building bulletproof analytics platforms. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The question everyone's asking, the anchor said, is how a company could suffer such a catastrophic failure just hours after terminating its chief technical officer and co-founder. They showed my LinkedIn photo, the professional one where I'm half smiling, looking confident and capable. Dr. Sarah Chen could not be reached for comment. I was too busy watching an empire burn one algorithm at a time. The call from Global Tech came 3 days after Dataflow's implosion made international headlines. I was sitting in my home office, still in pajamas at noon, when their CTO personally reached out. Dr. Chen, this is Jennifer Park from Global Tech. I'll be direct. We need someone who actually understands predictive analytics, and your work at Austin Financial speaks for itself. Are you available for consulting? My first instinct was to say no. I needed time to process everything. But then I remembered the mortgage payment, the lawyer fees, the reality of starting over at 35. I'm listening. $8,000 a day, minimum 2-week contract, possibility of extension. We need our entire analytics infrastructure audited yesterday. I nearly dropped my coffee. That was more than I'd made in 2 months at Dataflow. When do you need me? Can you start Monday? That's how my consulting career began. Not with careful planning, but with desperate companies suddenly realizing their analytics might have vulnerabilities only I could identify. Word spread quickly in Austin's tech community. The woman who'd saved Austin Financial was available, and everyone wanted to ensure they weren't the next Dataflow. My second client called while I was still working on Global Tech's audit. Then a third. Within 3 weeks, I had more work than I could handle and was turning down contracts. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. Michael had tried to erase my professional existence, but instead he'd made me legendary. The mysterious CTO who'd left just before the catastrophe, the only one who could have prevented it. I set up a proper home office in what used to be Michael's study, removed his pretentious business books he'd never read, his awards for entrepreneurial excellence that now seemed like jokes, replaced them with multiple monitors, a proper server setup, and an espresso machine that could sustain me through 16-hour days. The industry publications became my guilty pleasure. Every morning with my first espresso, I'd read the latest updates on Dataflow's collapse. Dataflow loses 4 more major clients. Inside the chaos, former employees described toxic leadership. From $15 million to bankruptcy, a cautionary tale. TechCrunch ran a particularly devastating piece featuring anonymous interviews with former employees. Someone, I suspected Jenny, had detailed how Michael had systematically undermined his co-founder before the collapse. The comment section was brutal. Classic case of ego over expertise, one commenter wrote. You don't terminate your technical architect and expect to survive in analytics. The Austin Business Journal featured a timeline of Dataflow's downfall, complete with a graph showing the stock price plummeting from $32 to 0 threes. They'd managed to get a photo of Michael leaving the office building for the last time, and he looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 months. Gray stubble, wrinkled shirt, the hollow eyes of someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. 6 weeks after the system failures began, Amanda's departure made the news. Not a grand announcement, just a small item in the tech gossip section. Former head of operations Amanda Rodriguez exits Dataflow amid ongoing crisis. Jenny texted me that night. You should have seen it. Michael blamed her for the operational failures. Said her processes had created systemic vulnerabilities. She threw her company laptop at him. Security had to separate them. I felt a twist of something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. Amanda had thought she was special, that she was different from me. Now she was learning what it felt like to be discarded when things went wrong. Her LinkedIn profile disappeared entirely 2 days later. When someone posted her name in connection with Dataflow's collapse on a tech forum, the responses were merciless. She was radioactive in the industry. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by a nervous process server who seemed relieved when I simply signed for them without drama. Sandra, my attorney, reviewed them that afternoon. He's not fighting for anything, she said, seeming puzzled. The house is yours, the joint accounts get split 50-50, and he's waiving any claim to your future earnings. What about Dataflow shares? She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. What shares? The company's worthless. Your 49% of nothing is still nothing. The financial statements she showed me were staggering. Dataflow, once valued at $15 million, was now worth less than $100,000 and falling. The office lease alone was worth more than the company's remaining assets. He's trying to sell, Sandra added. Word is he's shopping it around for pennies on the dollar, but no one's buying. Who wants an analytics company known for catastrophic system failures? Michael tried calling me once during the divorce proceedings. I answered because Sandra advised me to document any contact. Sarah. His voice was flat, exhausted. I'm not calling about the business. Then why are you calling? I wanted to apologize. I know what I did was wrong, the way I treated you, the way I ended things. I got caught up in the growth, the success, the image of being this visionary CEO. Amanda made me feel like I could be someone more important than I was. He paused. And now I'm nobody. The board forced me to step down as CEO. I'm just a figurehead with worthless shares in a worthless company. You're looking for sympathy. No, I'm looking for, closure, forgiveness. I can't give you either of those things, Michael. I know. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I threw away, what I destroyed. You were the soul of the company, and I cut it out. Yes, I said simply, you did. The line went quiet except for his breathing. The system failures, he said finally. They were too precise, too targeted. The timing was perfect. Are you accusing me of something? No, I'm saying I understand. And if I were in your position, I probably would have done the same thing, or worse. I have to go, Michael. Yeah, take care, Sarah. That was the last time we spoke directly. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I kept my maiden name on all the paperwork, Chen, not Taurus, despite his assumptions during our marriage. Meanwhile, Dataflow continued its death spiral. Employees jumped ship daily. The Austin office, once bustling with 45 people, was down to 8. They'd already closed their satellite office in Dallas and were trying to sublease the Austin space. The final nail came when the SEC investigation concluded. While they found no evidence of technical sabotage, my code was far too elegant for that, they did find evidence of the financial irregularities I discovered. Those phantom companies Michael and Amanda had been paying. The SEC was very interested in those transactions. Patricia Williams called me one last time as Dataflow entered its final days. We're writing it off as a complete loss, she said. $15 million gone. My partners want to know how I could have been so blind. You saw what Michael wanted you to see. No, I saw what I wanted to see. A charismatic male CEO with a beautiful girlfriend and a convenient technical partner who did the real work. It's the oldest story in tech, and I fell for it. What happens now? Bankruptcy. The assets will be sold off. The platform you built will probably be bought by someone who understands its value. Pennies on the dollar. And Michael, unemployable in tech. Between the failure and the SEC investigation, he's finished. Last I heard, he was moving back to San Antonio to live with his brother. Where he'd started, where he'd sworn he'd never return. The ambitious boy from South Texas who was going to conquer Austin's tech scene was going home defeated. My consulting business, meanwhile, was thriving. I'd incorporated as Quantum Analytics Solutions, a name that felt both powerful and precise. In 3 months, I'd made more than my annual salary at Dataflow. Companies didn't just want my expertise, they wanted the woman who'd survived the industry's most spectacular betrayal and emerged stronger. One evening, while reviewing a contract that would take me to Silicon Valley for 2 weeks, I got a text from an unknown number. Building's empty now. They're changing the locks tomorrow. I knew it was Jenny. I also knew what she was really telling me. An era was officially over. The company we'd built, the dream we'd shared, was dead. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my back porch, looking out at the Austin skyline. Somewhere in that maze of lights was an empty office with my code still embedded in its dead systems. Somewhere was Michael, probably packing his things for San Antonio. Somewhere was Amanda, trying to figure out how to rebuild a career that had turned to ash. And here I was, alone but not lonely, betrayed but not broken. The consulting contracts on my desk represented a future I was building on my own terms. No co-founders, no partners, no one to betray me or steal credit for my work. The wine tasted like victory, bitter and sweet in equal measure. The knock came 6 months later, on a humid August evening. Not the doorbell, a soft, hesitant knock, like someone afraid of being hurt. I looked through the peephole and nearly dropped my wine glass. Michael stood on my doorstep. But this wasn't the Michael who'd fired me with theatrical precision. His hair was too long, uncombed. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt I recognized from our college days, the faded UT Longhorns logo barely visible. His hands shook slightly as he raised them to knock again. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Hello, Michael." He looked up and I saw defeat written in every line of his face. Dark circles made his eyes look sunken. He'd lost weight, at least 20 pounds, and his wedding ring was gone, leaving a pale band of skin on his finger. "Can we talk?" His voice cracked on the second word. "We have lawyers for that. Not about the divorce, about Dataflow. What's left of it?" "Why would I care about Dataflow? Because I'm here to beg." The words fell out of him like stones. "The company is dying, Sarah. I've got maybe a week of operating capital left. The bankruptcy filing is ready to go. That's not my problem. I know. God, I know. But I need you to hear me out. Please, 5 minutes." Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the satisfaction of seeing him broken. I stepped aside and let him in. He stood awkwardly in my living room, looking at the space that used to be ours. I'd redecorated completely, removed every trace of our life together, painted the walls warm yellow instead of his preferred gray, replaced his cold modern furniture with comfortable pieces that actually felt like home. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the couch. He perched on the edge like he might need to run. I stayed standing. "The SEC cleared the company of criminal charges," he started, "but the investigation turned up those consulting fees. Amanda's schemes." "Amanda's schemes? You signed those checks." His jaw tightened. "She convinced me it was standard practice hiding money for emergency operations. She said every growing company did it. I was stupid enough to believe her. You were stealing from your own company. I was being manipulated by someone I thought loved me." He stopped, ran his hands through his hair. "It doesn't matter now. She's gone. Left the state entirely. Last I heard, she was in Phoenix working at her cousin's real estate office." A real estate office. The head of operations who'd helped destroy my life was now probably showing condos in Scottsdale. "What do you want from me, Michael?" He pulled out a folder from his bag, his hands trembling slightly. "I want to offer you the company. Full ownership. 100%. Complete control." I laughed, short and sharp. 100% of nothing is still nothing. It won't be nothing if you come back. We both know the platform works. You built something extraordinary. The system failures that destroyed us. He met my eyes. "They weren't random, were they?" I said nothing. "I'm not accusing you," he continued quickly. "I'm saying that someone who could create such precise failures could also fix them permanently. Make the platform stronger than ever." "And what would you get out of this generous offer?" "Nothing," I'd walk away completely. The company, the debts, the lawsuits, it would all be yours. I just want to see something good come from the wreckage. I walked to the window, looking out at the Austin skyline, making him wait. The satisfaction of this moment, him begging, offering me everything, should have felt better. Instead, I felt hollow. Why now, Michael? Why not 6 months ago when you could have avoided all this? Because 6 months ago, I still thought I was smarter than you. I thought I could run the company better than you. I thought... He swallowed. I thought I could erase you and no one would notice. I turned to face him. And now? Now I know that without you, there is no company. There never was. It was always your vision, your innovation, your brilliance. I was just the salesman. The admission hung in the air between us. The employees who are left, I said, do they know you're here? The 7 people remaining? They're the ones who told me to come. Jenny specifically said I'd thrown away the best thing that ever happened to the company out of ego and stupidity. Jenny, still fighting for me even when I wasn't there. And the platform? In what condition? Barely functional. The system errors corrupted a lot of the core algorithms. It would need to be completely rebuilt. From scratch? From the ground up, with someone who understands the original architecture. I studied his face, looking for deception, for hidden motives. But all I saw was exhaustion and genuine regret. I need complete access to all financial records, I said. Real ones, not the sanitized versions you showed before. Done. And I wanted in writing that you acknowledge my role as the sole architect of all core technology. Yes. And Michael. I turned to face him fully. If you ever try to contact me again, interfere with the company, or claim any credit for the work, I'll destroy whatever I build more thoroughly than I destroyed the original. His face went pale. How could you? The same way I could create system failures that looked like natural degradation. Don't underestimate me again. He nodded slowly. I never should have underestimated you in the first place. We spent the next hour going through his proposal. He'd clearly had lawyers prepare it. Everything I demanded was already included, plus provisions I hadn't thought of. Complete indemnification from existing debts, transfer of all intellectual property rights, even a clause preventing him from working in analytics for 5 years. When do you need an answer? I asked when we'd reviewed everything. Honestly, yesterday. But I know I have no right to push. Take whatever time you need. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. Sarah, I know this doesn't fix what I did. The betrayal, the affair, the way I tried to erase you from something you built. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, because you won't get it. I know, but maybe something good can come from all this destruction. Maybe you can build something even better from the ashes. After he left, I called Sandra. He offered me what? She sounded stunned after I explained. Sarah, this is unprecedented. You'd have complete control, and he'd assume all the debts and legal liabilities. Is it legally sound? I'll review it tomorrow, but from what you're describing, yes. The question is whether you want to go back to that world. Did I? My consulting business was thriving. I was my own boss, choosing my clients, setting my rates. Why would I return to the graveyard of my betrayal? But then I thought about the platform, my algorithms, my innovation, sitting dormant in a dying company. The potential wasted, the problems it could solve if properly rebuilt. I texted Jenny. Michael came to see me, offered me the company. Her response was immediate. Please say yes. The platform deserves better than this slow death. We all know it was always yours. Monday morning, I walked through Dataflow's doors for the first time in 6 months. The office was ghostly. Empty desks, dark offices, the reception area unmanned. The 7 remaining employees were clustered in what used to be the break room, now converted into a makeshift operations center. They all stood when I entered. Jenny stepped forward. Welcome home, she said. Where was Michael? Gone, Jenny replied. He cleaned out his office yesterday and left his access cards on the desk. Said he was moving back to San Antonio this weekend. Smart. He was giving me space to establish complete authority without the awkwardness of his presence. I spent the morning reviewing the damage. It was worse than I'd imagined. The system failures had cascaded through months of neglect, corrupting databases and destroying carefully calibrated algorithms. But underneath the damage, the foundation remained solid. My original architecture like bedrock beneath rubble. Give me 2 weeks, I told the team. We'll not only be operational, we'll be revolutionary. The work was exhausting but exhilarating. Every line of code welcomed me back like an old friend. The vulnerabilities I'd created were still there, dormant but dangerous. I closed them one by one, then built new defenses that turned former weaknesses into strengths. But I wasn't just rebuilding, I was reimagining. The months of distance had given me perspective on improvements I hadn't seen before. New algorithms that could predict market patterns with unprecedented accuracy. Machine learning models that adapted in real time to changing data landscapes. By the second Tuesday, the platform was humming. Not just functional, transcendent. The months of forced evolution had crystallized into something far beyond my original vision. The first client call came that afternoon. Richard Lawson from Austin Financial, who'd been calling me for months. Dr. Chen, I heard you're back at Dataflow. Please tell me it's true. It's true, Richard, and I have something to show you that will change everything. The demonstration was flawless. The new algorithms didn't just detect market patterns, they predicted market evolution. The cryptocurrency model that had made us famous was now child's play compared to what I'd built from the ashes. My God, Richard whispered as the data unfolded on his screen. This isn't just analytics, this is prophecy. Send the contract to my attention, I said. I'll review it personally. Word spread quickly through Austin's financial community. The woman who'd built Dataflow was back, and she'd created something unprecedented from the company's ruins. Within a month, we had more clients than we'd ever had before. Not just returning customers, but new ones drawn by the legend of the platform that had died and been reborn stronger. I hired carefully, not just skilled developers, but people who understood that innovation came from collaboration, not competition. The toxic culture Michael had fostered was replaced by something healthier, more sustainable. 6 months after taking control, I stood in our new office, larger than the old one, with better equipment and windows that actually opened. The team had grown to 30 people, all of them committed to the vision of what analytics could become. Jenny found me there one evening, working late on a new algorithm that could predict social trends with 97% accuracy. You know, she said, settling into the chair beside my desk. Michael was right about one thing. I looked up from my code. What's that? You did build something extraordinary from the ashes, just not in the way he expected. Through the window, Austin's skyline glittered in the distance. Somewhere out there, Michael was probably working at his brother's construction company, learning what it felt like to be ordinary again. Somewhere, Amanda was showing houses to strangers, her dreams of corporate power reduced to commission checks. And here I was, in the company I'd built twice now, once with a partner who betrayed me, and once entirely on my own terms. The platform hummed with quiet efficiency, processing data for clients around the world. My code, my vision, finally acknowledged as mine alone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's resurrection. Rising from the ashes stronger than ever, proving that some things are too powerful to be killed by betrayal. The algorithm I was working on was almost complete. Another breakthrough that would cement Dataflow's position at the forefront of predictive analytics. Another innovation that bore my name alone. I saved my work, closed my laptop, and headed home to the house that was truly mine now. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to push the boundaries of what was possible. But tonight, I would sleep peacefully for the first time in over a year, knowing that sometimes the person others underestimate most is exactly who holds all the power. And more importantly, sometimes that person is generous enough to use that power not just for revenge, but for something greater. The dead man's switch had served its purpose. Now it was time to build something that would never need protecting, because it was too valuable, too innovative, and too clearly mine for anyone to ever steal again.